Welcome to part two of this three-part series, Upper Limits, the Real Reason You Self-Sabotage. And in part one, we talked a little bit about what self-sabotage is, how it shows up for people, some of the common patterns that people have, and I gave you a couple of tools to move through that self-sabotage in the moment. And today in part two, we're going to go a little bit deeper where I'm going to be sharing with you some a little more hidden self-sabotage patterns. They're also very, very common. We all have them, some one, two, some combination, or even a hybrid of them. And I'm also going to be giving you a 5-step, very quick process to help you move through them so that you can get to the other side. Because ultimately, we all have patterns of self-sabotage. We all have upper limits, especially when we are trying to create something new in the world or show up in a different way. Basically, when we're progressing, we are going to have these patterns showing up. So my job for today, or my intention for today, is to help you see them a little more clearly so that you can witness them, be on top of them, and ultimately be able to shift them. So can't wait to share. So, a very quick recap on what self-sabotage is. You may hear me refer to it as a self-sabotage pattern or sabotage pattern. Backlash. Some of the work I do, we call it backlash, which sounds a bit harsh, but sometimes sabotage can feel that way. Or it can be called upper limit patterns. Really, they're all ultimately connected. And I'm going to be sharing a little bit more around upper limits in part three. But really, these patterns are very unconscious most of the time, and they show up when we are making progress. So ultimately, it's a good thing. They're not going to show up if we're not doing anything. But if we are trying to do something different in the world, show up differently, play bigger, all of these things, they are going to show up. And often we don't notice when they're here. And so we are in them and moving forward, but in the pattern, which ultimately is kind of stalling us, stopping us, or messing things up a little bit, actually. And we're not even aware of it. And so, really, what I want to do today is highlight 3 common patterns that are very hidden. And they're so easy for us to just minimize and not even notice that they're there. But if we don't catch them, we can actually be stuck in these patterns for a really long time. So, my goal is to help highlight these for you so that you can see them a lot sooner and be able to shift them right away. So we're going to start off, we're going to dive right into the 3 patterns that are very common. And I really just invite you to let this wash over you. And as always, this is about making this relevant for you. It's not just information. We do not shift with information only. We actually have to apply it to ourselves if we want to transform and truly move forward. So just listen and see which of these resonate with you. You may have one, you may have more than one, you might have a combination, you might even have some kind of hybrid mix between these. But just again, just let yourself wash over, let this wash over you without any judgment. So the first is an anxiety-based sabotaging pattern. And so how that's going to show up is when you're in flow. And when I say flow, I think you all know what that means, right? Things are going really well. You're moving forward. Things are feeling really great. You are in flow. You don't have anxiety. You're showing up in a different way. You're not leading with fear, right? You actually are in a place where you feel really confident and you're feeling really good and doing what you're doing in the world without this anxiety. And as you continue to progress, the sabotaging pattern, if you have it, will sneak in, and it's a part of you that kicks in. You can call it your ego, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but it's going to show up and basically say on some level that it's not safe for you to be so carefree. It's not safe for you to be fearless, right? It's not yeah, I use the word safe very specifically. This is deeply wired stuff. Your conscious mind is might blow it off, but subconsciously we all have this very deep desire to be safe. And so when you are kind of like out there and really just not showing up in a place of fear and anxiety, this again is the ego because it always wants to keep you where you are. It's going to kick in. And so what it will do is jack up your anxiety. And so you've been going along, you've been feeling really great, you've been progressing, and then all of a sudden you have this anxiety that just kind of kicks in, and it has you questioning things, it has you slowing down, it makes you feel like you haven't made any progress. It's basically an inner stall tactic, and it's an inner sabotage. And it kind of comes in very sneakily and sort of shuts us down when we're really making progress. So I just want to let that one wash over you. Very, very common and very commonly mixed in with a few other ones, because we can justify anxiety, right? There's lots going on in the world. There might be some stuff in your current world, right? You're around people who are anxious, right? There's lots of ways we can justify this anxiety. But I really want to offer you to have this, it's like this flashlight so that you can kind of get in the corners here. So just really notice if that resonates with you, rings true with you. So, and again, this is maybe if you don't have a lot of anxiety in general, this might not be your pattern, but it might be this next pattern, which is a self-critically based pattern. So this is going to show up when you're being more positive, you're being very self-affirming in the world, you're really proud of yourself, you've taken some bold action, you're kind of walking around with a vibration of I'm awesome, right? I'm deserving, I'm worthy, right? You're having this sort of energy that is very self-affirmative. And so again, this is because this egoic part of us or this other small part of ourselves, whatever you want to call it, it's another piece, it's an old program, it's a subconscious wiring. It's going to have you slow down, and it's going to feed you messages like, who do you think you are? Maybe if you're really critical, or it might be like, oh, maybe you should slow down a little bit. You don't want to stand out too much. You don't want to look too powerful. Right? It's really resurfacing to pull you back to an old way of being. And this is not conscious. Really want to stress that. It just kind of invades you. And again, it makes you think you're not making progress, right? And so anytime we feel like we're stuck, it's going to kind of keep us in this stuck pattern, right? Because we are not really seeing the progress that we're making. And I really do want to clarify that if any of these patterns are showing up for you, it means you are making progress. They do not show up if you're not making progress. So that's the second one. Again, you may have number one, number two, you may have a combination of those two. And the third one is really interesting. And again, it's just a really, there's different ways to think about this for yourself. So feel into it for you. It's battle-based. And so again, you're moving along, things are going well, you're making progress, big strides, right? Things are feeling really good. And then there's going to be some version of a battle appearing out of nowhere as you are making these big strides. So it's going to be something that validates an old story that you have about yourself, that you have about other people, about the unfairness of life, about comparison, right? It's going to show up in ways that is like, oh, I'm being overlooked right now, or I'm going to have a battle with someone in a different area of my life that slows down this one area that's going really, really well. It might show up with, I'm just mad at this person. I'm so frustrated. This person is annoying me, right? So all of these things, again, can seem so subtle. Your brain can be like, it's legit. This person is annoying me, right? Whatever it is. But it's really all about bringing you back to playing smaller. Again, it's a stall tactic. It shuts you down when you're focused, when your energy is focused, when you're focused on this sort of thing. Life's not fair. The universe is out to get me, right? It can be those kinds of pieces. It can be people. It can be a bit of a battle with yourself, which we talked a little bit about with the self-critical. But it's usually something that is sort of outside of you. So not so much about you, so about other people, about the world in general, about the universe, something like that. And so it will bring you back to this playing smaller energy, right? And so ultimately your magnetism decreases, your focus decreases, and you slow down your flow. So for some people, that's going to look like just a slowdown and a gradual slowdown. For some people, it's going to look like a shutdown completely. And right, it could be anywhere in between. And so this is the first piece that I want you just to feel into these three patterns. Number one, anxiety based. Number two, self-critically based. And number three, battle based. And see which of these apply to you. And I can almost guarantee you're not going to not have one of these in some version or another, right? It might be slightly tweaked to fit you, but just sort of feel into that. And again, I just want to highlight that it's because you're doing really, really good things. You are being confident. You are showing up in a different way. You're operating in a new way. You're taking bigger actions. You're owning your value. And so they are showing up because of that. And if you're not really conscious of them, they can run the show. And sometimes they can be really hard to pinpoint because it's often a combination of thoughts, of feelings, of belief, of stuff in your body that hasn't actually been expressed. So sometimes it feels like all of these things are sort of happening within you, and it's really hard to pinpoint and name it as a sabotage pattern, right? Or an upper limit pattern. So just really understanding that, as I said earlier, right? If we can catch it soon, then you can actually do something about it. You can shift through it quite quickly when you're really on top of it, when you're really conscious of it. When we're unconscious to it, it is just kind of there running the show. And we might not notice it until a week later, a month later, sometimes even months later. And again, it may not be dramatic, but it will just be a diminishment of the progressive sequence that you've been making. And again, whatever area of life that is for you. So really the steps that I want to offer you, first of all, make it so conscious within yourself. So just, again, I said this before in, I think, the last video, we can know things, but I want you to know things so that you are so hyper aware of these patterns when they show up and you can catch them really quickly. It's not easy. It takes practice. I'm often holding that mirror to my clients and they're like, holy crap, right? I did not see that as an upper limit pattern or a self-sabotage pattern. So it does take some practice to sort of notice this, but it's so worth it because when you do that, you can then be like, oh, I totally get this. I see what's happening. Again, when we're in something, we're just in it. We're not conscious of it and we're just operating from that place. When you can step back and look at it and see what's happening for you, then you can take off some of the criticism maybe around yourself in terms of maybe not making enough progress, and really understand that you actually are making progress. And that's why this is showing up. And it just allows you to course correct, to shift it immediately so you can get back on and continue with what you're doing. We really get to short circuit this pattern and expedite the process. And why would we not want to do that, right? So we'd rather get this over with in a day or two or 10 minutes or so. Again, I'm going to give you a 10-minute quick steps to help you shift this in the moment. So just take one more moment here, as I've said this, to capture anything that really resonated with you. Which of the above patterns or combo or hybrid are your patterns? I would personally capture them so that you're super, super conscious on them so that you can spot them easily and quickly. And then once you've done that, I'm going to take you through a 5-step process that you can do in under 10 minutes to shift the moment you notice. And you can definitely stretch this process out longer if you want. It's really a formula that I'm going to give to you there's a purpose to it. So you can definitely substitute some of my suggestions with your own tools, but it really is this combination of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual tools, because we are so integrated in our beingness that it's not just this mental pattern that we have, right? It's actually, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's happening. So, and I really do strongly recommend the physical component. And I will say that over and over and over and over again, because people will almost always forget about it. And so we can shift mindset, but we have a nervous system, we have stuff that's stuck in our body. And so we actually really need to be addressing our body as well as our mind. So step number 1, I'm going to suggest tapping. And I will create just a video on how to tap and put that somewhere and link you to it. But for now, I'm going to give you the quick tutorial version of this. So tapping is an energetic clearing technique. It just requires us tapping on different points of the body, which I'll take you through in just a moment, just so you have those. And it's really to help rewire your nervous system, to neutralize your nervous system. And it's so great because it allows you to verbalize what's going on for you. Because it's a clearing technique, you are actually clearing it out of your field. It's physical, right? So you're actually doing a physical thing, and it's nervous system related. And so for me, I'm always about efficiency. So it's one of the quickest things you can do that addresses all of these things so that you can get on with your day. So really the tapping points, you're going to use 2 to 3 fingers tapping. There are different versions of this, but I'm going to just take you right into the main points. And if you feel like you don't want to do all of the points, my favorite place to tap is underneath my collarbone, especially on the left side. I find it really, it's quite soothing actually, and very easy. You don't have to worry about moving through all of the points, and equally effective. But if you can do all of the points, why not? So it's the first one is between the eyebrows. You're going to use 2 to 3 fingers, depending on the point. You'll determine what that is. You will be tapping and talking. You don't have to talk, but in this case, I would really recommend that you do, because you're going to be able to verbalize some things. And you just sort of move to the next point once you've said the little sentence that you're saying. So it's probably like 8 to 15 taps, right? Just depending on what you're saying. The second point is the side of the eye, right at the crease here. Third is under the eye on the bone. Fourth is under the nose above the lip. Fifth is below the lip above the chin. Sixth is that under the collarbone point, so it's not right on the collarbone. Seventh is under the armpit, sort of side of bra band. You maybe can't see it here. It's slightly awkward, but worth doing. And then the final point is on the crown of the head. So I'm just going to take you through a very gentle, simple round of this right now. And what I recommend is saying the things that are coming up. So if your pattern is anxiety-based, you are going to include things around anxiety. If your pattern is self-critical, you might even say some of those self-critical things, and understand that you're clearing them. You're not affirming them. I really want to highlight that. A lot of times people don't want to say the negative stuff. It is one of the, it's not, I mean, you can affirm things, but if underneath there is stuff that's there, the affirmation is just a band-aid, right? We actually have to kind of get that. It's just energy, right? We just have to get it out, up and out of you. So it can be really helpful to verbalize those things. Or if you don't want to say them out loud, you can say them in your mind. And if it's the battle thing, right, you might be, I'm so mad, this person is making me crazy, whatever it is. And again, I just invite you to give it a shot. And I mean, some people just don't want to say anything negative, and that's up to you. I'm not going to make you do it, but just really understand. Obviously, I can't make you do it. I just want you to understand that it is a clearing technique, and it's so great because this stuff, if it's in there, it's in there anyway. So why not get it out of your system instead of letting it sort of be there without you even knowing or acknowledging it and then trying to take action on top of it. So I will just take you through a couple of examples just to go through the points a couple of times, and then you can play around with this. So I'm so anxious right now. Okay, so you would just repeat after me in this moment and tap. I feel like I am questioning everything. I don't know if this is the right path for me. I can feel this in my belly. I feel so nervous, right? You can continue with the anxiety one. I'm going to move on to the self-critical. Who do I think I am standing out so much? Maybe this is too bright for me to shine right now. And then under the collarbone, I'm pretty sure there are people judging me because I'm standing out. Again, you can continue with this pattern, with this, right? And you don't even have to say a million different things, right? You can say a few things over repetitively, right? A few times. So now I'll go into the battle. I am under the arm here. I'm so mad at, you can name the person, or I'm mad at this situation. I'm mad at the universe that this is taking so long. Crown of the head. I can't believe they're acting this way. It's slowing me down and wrecking my flow. Okay, so that's just an example. Again, I did that relatively quickly. My recommendation is probably go through those tapping points. So however many there were, 8, I think I said. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yes. So 8 different, I would recommend going through that, let's say 3 times. And so whatever is true for you, you get to verbalize. So that's step number one. I know it seemed like it took a long time because I was explaining it, but really tapping through those points 8 times and verbalizing is going to take you probably 4 minutes, right? And so and if there are emotions that come up, then I allow those to kind of come up as well. Or if you don't feel like saying the words, you can just try the tapping points and work through that. But I would recommend that, the verbalizing. So that's number one. Number two is doing something really physical. Again, just to move this energy out of your body. So it could be something like punching a pillow. There's something like called axe chopping, where you just kind of almost pretend you're chopping an axe. It's a bit more vigorous than that, but that can really address anger that you might have. It could be an air punch. It could be some vigorous exercise. And really, again, we're just trying to get this out of our body. Sound can be really good. You could even be verbalizing as you're doing these actions. And I know that it might feel corny, but who cares, right? It's so worth moving this energy, right? It's just stuck in your body. You don't really want to do it. So that's number two, doing something very physical to release that. And I mean, I say really physical, but if you're just drawn to maybe stretch, that could be good as well, right? That's also opening your body and releasing energy. So intuit what feels good for you. But if there's a lot of anger or frustration, then I do think it's good to be relatively physical, right? So that you can sort of express that anger, because it's actually, when we express anger, there's a lot of energy there, right? It actually can really open up some flow for us. Once you've done those first two steps, tapping and something physical, this doesn't have to take long, the physical, right? It can be like it could be 20 jumping jacks, or it could be, just taking a pillow and bringing it on the bed, or whatever you want to do this, right? So maybe you're at like 5 minutes now and then, or 6 minutes. And then the third step is just to pause once you've done this physical release. And again, this is not just physical, it's nervous system and it's unconscious rewiring. It's really good stuff, right? It's not just, these are really integrated, layered steps. And that's why I've given them to you in this way. So just breathing. So maybe that's 5 deep breaths, 5 box breaths, something where you're really focused, and the breath piece is great. Anytime, you can always add breath, but it's going to feel really great if you've done these other two. It's just going to feel different, right? It's actually going to give you some space, some quietness, because you've now released some of the stuff that you don't want to have. Step 4 then is to reflect on, what do you really want? What would you like instead of what you're experiencing right now? So if you are experiencing procrastination, if you are feeling a lack of confidence, right? You might be thinking, I really feel like I'd like to feel confident as I move towards this goal. I want to feel at peace as I am creating this new offering in the world. I want to, not be angry, but I'm going to encourage the affirmative version of that. So again, peace is always a good one. I want to have calm and peace as I am progressing forward with this, whatever it is. So just getting clear on what you really want. And you're going to have access to that once you've done those first few steps. And then the last step is to create some version of, I'm going to say, an aligned, powerful affirmation. But the key here is that it's in direct opposition to all that has come up. So affirmations can be great. I'm a fan of doing one really good one that addresses the thing that you're struggling with. So again, if you are feeling a lack of confidence, or if you are feeling frustrated, right, all of those things, or you're procrastinating, or you're just not getting what you want, right, you would want to come up with the thing that's the opposite to that. So it might be something like, I am so powerful, or I'm powerful and I have so much to offer. People really need what I offer in the world, and I get to stand out to share it. Might be something like, life really does support me, right? So something that is going to help anchor in a new, tweaked and reminder almost. It's kind of allowing you to come back to the truth of why you're doing what you're doing, why you're showing up in a bigger way, why you're asking for more in the world, whatever it is for you. It's going to anchor that back in, and so that you are then sort of embodying that new affirmation for yourself. So those are the 5 steps that can help you shift this. And so just to capture this, when you're noticing anxiety, when you're noticing self-criticism, when you're noticing battle stuff coming up, you now know that these could potentially, not always, but they could potentially be a part of a self-sabotage pattern. So you then can say, oh, I get it. This is what's happening. So I don't have to be stuck in it. And I can see, I'm not going to let it take me down or slow me down. I'm going to shift this right now. So right away, that already feels empowering because you're on top of it. You've made it conscious. And then you have some tools, and I've given you a few, and you can mix and match them. But the steps themselves are really great. I always will say to people, we do want to release before we get into the expansion. Yeah, in this case, when you're in a place of sabotage, there's some release that needs to happen. There's something that's coming up that's old, that's not serving you. So we do need to address it. And this is just the fastest way to do it. And so again, I like fast. So just to summarize, ultimately sabotage and sabotage patterns are very normal. When it shows up, it's a really good thing because it means you're progressing. It's up to you to recognize it so that you can catch it sooner than later, and really knowing that you can shift it. It's so worth doing this. I truly believe we're all here to shine, to show up big, to serve as much as we can, and in turn receive for that. We are meant to keep progressing and breaking through these ceilings, whatever those ceilings are: visibility, income, platform, impact, leadership, having the life you truly desire and want. And recognizing these patterns and applying these tools so that you can move through quickly and get on with your life is really the best thing that you can do for yourself. So see you in the next week for the final part in this series, where we're going to dive one more layer deep into upper limits. And I'm going to share some upper limits that might surprise you. And they're often, again, very unconscious or hidden, but they're definitely there. And I will show you even a deeper layer of how to break through these. So I'm hoping you are enjoying this series so far. If you haven't seen part 1, I would recommend, they do sort of layer and build and intertwine all 3 of these. Part 3 will be next week. Love to have you subscribe, and also would love to hear any insights, takeaways, anything that you want to share. I'm always happy to receive that and comment on it. So have a fantastic week, connecting to yourself, to your value, to being in your power, and understanding that this is just a piece of the journey. It doesn't mean anything about you except that you're human, and that you now have some awareness and tools to be able to shift it to create what you really want to be creating in the world. See you soon.